Hello and welcome into another episode of Reality Check over here on Talkin Jets. What is going on? I am Matt O'Leary, joined as always by my good buddy Jeremy, aka Jets Chaos. What's going on, my friend? How are you?
What is going on? We are good. Things are happening. Good things are happening. Questions are being answered. And last week we said next week things will be different. Everything will be different. And hey, man, we got two more guys on the offensive line. We are one spot away from having the starting five, and it's feeling really good.
It is feeling really good. Obviously, a ton of things happen, so we'll break that down. We'll talk about what's next. We want to hear from the chat as well, what you guys are thinking so far with free agency, guys that the Jets have lost out on, all stuff like that. But so far, Jeremy, through the free agency process, is there a move that sticks out to you that's your favorite?
The trade for Morgan was definitely popped to me because that was an off our radar kind of move, right? We could not see that coming. He was not on the free agency list. Nobody was talking about it. And I love the Simpson move as well. I really do, although there are a little bit more questions to that move that we can talk about. But the Morgan Moses coming back home after he was here for that 1 year is just great news. And it just solidifies a tackle spot, which is just fantastic.
Yeah, to me, I agree with you. I think the Morgan Moses move is my favorite trade. My favorite signing, which we could get into maybe a little bit after this, is Tyrod Taylor. That one's been my favorite so far. But the reason why I like the trade so much is because this is the exact kind of creativity that I was looking to see out of Joe Douglas, because they have all these late picks. You know, they have a bunch, you have multiple sixths, multiple fourths, multiple sevenths. And I was hoping with this window with Aaron Rodgers that find a creative way to move some of those day three and later picks that have a very, very small chance of hitting and finding value right away early on in their career. Move that for established players. And that's exactly what they did with Moses. They dropped, it was a pick swap in the fourth round. So you're moving 20 spots down and giving up a compensatory sixth round pick for a starting caliber right tackle who's making $5.5 million this year. To me, like, that's a no-brainer. That's a great value deal, in my opinion.
Who would have guessed that we could fill either of the tackle spots with a very respectable player, like very serviceable, average to better than average, whatever you want to call, however you want to rate them, but to be able to fill that spot competently for $5.5 million and a sixth-round pick and a swap of the fourth round. I mean, that's nothing compared to what we're gaining. We just filled a major hole on this roster, and we kept our pocketbooks full for one more big one. Like, we still haven't had a big splash signing. I don't know if we will, if we can keep finding these kind of value type of moves. But it looks like for left tackle, it's hard to see anything like that, except for we're going to have to open up the bag, whether it's the left tackle or the wide receiver.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think that's kind of the next thing that's coming, because, wide receiver is still a big need that they haven't addressed yet. Still don't have left tackle figured out. That's something that, they could do now. They could do it during the draft. There's, many ways that they could attack both of those things. I guess you mentioned it. There's some things that I like with John Simpson and some things that scare me a little bit. So I think I would describe myself as lukewarm on that signing. I think there's like I just said, I like that he's a younger guy. I like that it wasn't much money. It was a fair value deal. He's very good in the run game, but I'm not going to lie to you. The penalties do scare me. It happened in Baltimore with a more running quarterback in Lamar. So I understand there's going to be holding penalties, but he also had penalty issues with Derek Carr as his quarterback too. So I don't think it's only just because he was blocking for Lamar and, just holding on for dear life at the end. I think the penalties are a little bit of a concern. How do you feel about the Simpson deal?
Yeah, I mean, look, for it wasn't going to be the picture perfect situation, right? And that's the cost of having to go out and fill a lot of holes and not have endless money to do it. And you're going to have to take some compromises and not have the complete total superstar at every position. So the penalties are definitely a concern. I think that, you can look at it from two ways, and it's kind of a glass half full, glass half empty. It's going to be whether or not, the penalty is going to hurt a little bit. Then on the nice positive side, if you're looking at from the perspective of looking at the four guys we have and looking at Breece Hall and the things he's done up till now without a good run blocking offensive line, on that side of the coin, it looks a lot better because we have four guys right now that all could run block. So it's starting to look really good for Breece Hall. But I think when you want to put that value in, and get the value of cost versus performance, there's going to be some compromise. And I think the penalties are something we're going to have to brace ourselves for sure.
Absolutely. And, if he ends up being the weakest link, so to speak, on the offensive line, like if he's your fifth best starter in 2024, I think you could survive that. And he is, like, we'll call it what it is. It is an upgrade over Laken Tomlinson. He's cheaper. You're going from like one of the worst starting, I hate to say it that way, but one of the worst starting guards in the league to maybe above average to slightly below average, like in that average to slightly below average tier as a starter, which again, if that's your worst guy on the line, is probably good enough to get you middle of the pack.
Oh yeah, especially when you consider, Aaron Rodgers gets rid of the ball a lot sooner. The fact that he has the strength of run blocking, again, that we said, I think it's going to set up a lot of play action anyway for Rodgers, where he's going to get rid of the ball fast. I think a lot of the weakness could get hidden a little bit anyway. Yeah, I'm happy. I mean, basically, when you look at it, it really just cost us $1 million to upgrade Laken Tomlinson to this guy. And Laken was really a problem. He was like, a very serious problem for this team. I mean, there were times where players would come through untouched and plays would collapse.
Yeah, and Simpson, similarly to Laken Tomlinson, like the thing with Laken is he played every day, and credit to him for that. Like the Jets got him to, and that was very, very challenging for this team. They had a million different offensive lines rotations. Simpson's someone who, when he's been given the starter role, he's been healthy. He started 2 out of the 4 years he's been in the league, but he was kind of just in a backup role in the other year, so it wasn't like injuries were a thing. So health, obviously, a plus with Simpson as well. I like this comment from Dakota Popson. Says, can't believe we have Tyrod Taylor for backup. He's played for all 3 New York teams now when you include Buffalo. That's funny. I like that. And I mentioned it before that Tyrod was my favorite signing. And I just, when they made that signing, I just breathed a sigh of relief, because if, God forbid, Aaron gets banged up, has to miss 2 games, I am more than comfortable with Tyrod Taylor coming in and managing and holding down the fort. If he has to play a full season, different story, right? Like no one's asking or wants Tyrod Taylor to be their starting quarterback at this point in his career. But once Gardner Minshew goes to the Raiders, where he'll have a really good chance to start, once Jacoby Brissett goes to the Patriots, where he'll be in competition with a rookie probably to start, and then I think you're looking at the remaining options, and Tyrod Taylor was one of, if not the best one available.
Yeah, I think that it ended up really working out well for us with him. It's a veteran guy. He has a similarity to Aaron that he does get rid of the ball quickly, which is a nice thing for the offensive line. They don't have to make an adjustment to that. As far as, it's hard when it's a big difference. You got a guy that has, gets rid of the ball fast, and then you're going to get a guy that's going to hold the ball. Changes a lot. So I like that. And again, we know that to really compete for a championship, we need a healthy, Aaron Rodgers. There's no argument to that. There wasn't going to be a backup quarterback that was going to make us feel differently. But if Aaron Rodgers has to miss a game, 2 games here or a game there, or something gets banged up a little bit, we have a backup quarterback now who we know what we're getting. We're going to get a chance to compete. Like every other team, our defense will have to step up, and hopefully we'll have a good game plan that allows us to grind with Breece Hall and get some big plays and not really put all the weight on our backup quarterback shoulders. But this is a game manager with a lot of experience, and we'll have a chance to compete against anyone with him in there for a short time span.
Absolutely. Johnny has been watching a lot with me this week. Says, what's up, guys? Zach Wilson has finally put his townhouse in New Jersey up for sale. Trade is incoming. He gone. So that story is from the New York Post. Wanted to pull that up. They just tweeted it out. So yes, the story is out that he lists his $1 million home on the market. Now, another reason to bring this up, I don't know if you saw, but there was a trade for a backup quarterback. Desmond Ridder gets flipped to the Cardinals for Rondale Moore. So that's another spot that maybe could have used a backup that's off the board. Do you see Zach Wilson getting traded? Where do you think he ends up going?
It's hard to imagine someone taking him. Like from the very beginning, I was like, who? Like as far as the only value for trading versus cutting is money, right?
Yep.
And I'm thinking, who wants to relieve us of any of that money? Like if I'm another GM, I'm saying if I lose out on him to another team, fine, because no one's passionately cares that much about Zach Wilson. And hey, if I have any interest in him, I'll wait it out till the Jets are forced to release him, and I'll get him at the league minimum.
Yeah, exactly. So it's going to be really tough. Well, one, his play killed his value, and then Woody Johnson's comments killed his value, and now we're seeing other backup quarterbacks who, I mean, not that Desmond Ridder's all that great, but he played better than Zach Wilson did last year, and he gets flipped, in a deal that sends a depth receiver back to Atlanta. I think it's going to be hard for Joe Douglas to get anything for Zach Wilson, but we'll see. First super chat of the day, Blitz Crew hanging out with us. What's going on, Blitz Crew? He goes, with this O-line and Tyrod, we should at least have watchable football every week. After we get some left tackle and wide receiver help, draft can be best available. So let's get into that, Jeremy, because that feels like a very popular discussion point right now with the Jets trading for a right tackle, and people are assuming that AVT is going to be at right guard. If they sign a left tackle, and let's say maybe, who knows, maybe they add a receiver as well, does this change your mindset? Are you ready to change, hey, they don't need to necessarily take a tackle, they can go with a weapon in the first round of the draft?
Kind of. I mean, I definitely think, yes, it's more realistic that, let's say there's no trading partner, but we signed a left tackle. I definitely think we can, if somebody we love slips, if Neighbors is there, if Odunze is there, I don't want to create a riot right now, but maybe they even go defense if there's someone that they love. I'm not saying I would like to see that, but I think it opens up those possibilities and those doors. I think if we can get a second round pick by trading back a little bit, which is also a little easier to do if we get our left tackle, and Odunze and let's say Neighbors isn't there, and let's say JD doesn't have any interest in Bowers, then we could easily trade back to, like, let's say 20, go for a Brian Thomas, a Lad McConkey, right? I mean, there's a lot of good value there in those guys anyway. Those are strong players. And then in the second round, maybe go for a guy like Guyton or Morgan, one of these tackles that we could set up for the future that we can start to develop, because they're very good prospects. They're just not plug and play. That's why we don't talk about them in the top 20 or as a possibility for us right now, as a team that doesn't have a left tackle.
No, exactly. And I'm going to say, for my answer, I'm going to say it still depends. I'm not ready to jump fully over to that yet, because if they sign David Bakhtiari, let's say, which they've been linked to multiple times, one because of Aaron Rodgers and just, everything with that. But with how many games he's missed, there is no way that you can go into next season and be like, oh, they signed Bakhtiari, like, we're good. No. You have to have a much, much better contingency plan than you did last year. So I will say it's still TBD, depends. But what if, and again, I'm not saying this is my favorite option, but Elijah Vera-Tucker played left tackle at USC. He did play it for a game against the Pittsburgh Steelers last year. What if they had AVT at left tackle and then they drafted a Fuaga or a Latham or someone like that and played them at right guard their first year while Morgan Moses is here, and then assuming Moses is only here on the 1 year remaining deal, they kick the guy that they drafted in the first round this year out to tackle after that. That could potentially be another area they think to fix this line. Again, AVT at left tackle is not my preferred plan, but it's something they've done with him in the past, so I think worth talking through at least.
Yeah, I think, because I think either of those guys could line up at guard. I think, even a JC Latham, you might never want to move him from guard. Like he has, the great fundamentals. He knows how to lock up. He knows how to anchor. He might be a guy you don't move and you just have the flexibility to move. So he gives you a lot of options. Fuaga, I feel like, is going to be a tackle at some point. And that's where and that's what he should be at some point. Latham, I could see going either way, and a great flexibility, great guy to have. And I love the idea of what you're saying. Like, but the only thing I don't want to hear is AVT not being re-signed. Like, we're gonna keep AVT on this squad long term.
Yeah, I agree. I think so too, assuming health. Blitzcrew's back with another super chat. Goes, if we get a left tackle, we could trade 10 for Jefferson with a laughing face. I don't think he's going anywhere now. Not that Sam Darnold is bringing much confidence right now as QB1, but who knows? Maybe they get aggressive in the draft. That could be a trade partner for the Jets at pick 10 if you want to move back potentially. Or maybe the Jets send Zach Wilson there, and it's a Wilson versus Darnold quarterback competition for the starting job. Both the Jets' last first-round quarterbacks.
The greatest thing that could happen for Sam Darnold is if Minnesota, for some reason, has bitten on the 𝐿'𝐿 hype. Because if 𝐿'𝐿 comes in there, Darnold has a very legitimate shot to hold his number one spot. So that's what he should be hoping for if he wants to play, that Minnesota's foolish enough to go for 𝐿'𝐿. But I definitely agree. The Vikings might be very aggressive to move up, because it's hard to believe that Sam Darnold is their long-term plan at quarterback.
Absolutely. T-Go's in here. He's been a member for 7 months of the channel. Great show with Green Bean last night. Says, new Jets running back coach Tony Dews at Arizona Pro Day running the wide receiver drills. 𝐿𝐿𝐫𝐚, watch Jordan Morgan, maybe. Hit the like button, you heathens. That's right. Make sure to drop a like while you're in here. Jeremy, any takes on either of those two prospects from the Arizona Pro Day?
Yeah, well, I think, like I said, Jordan Morgan, if you get a second-round pick and he's there's nothing wrong with him as a prospect other than that he's not plug and play. There's a lot to like about him. If you watch his film, he's potentially going to be, a better than just starting tackle. Like, he could be a really good tackle. His ceiling is nice. He's also a guy who can miss and never pan out, which is why, again, we're not talking about him in that top 5 conversation. I like 𝐿𝐿𝐫𝐚. I like him a lot. I've watched, a lot of fun film on him. He's a guy who can make plays for you. Throw him a 5-yard pass and he could break it into God knows what, and he has that, like, running back build and running back style. Once he touches the ball in space, he's a dangerous player, and he'd be a great weapon to add.
Yeah, he's definitely a dynamic player. It'd be fun to see him in this offense and see if Rodgers can get him the ball in space and let him do his yards after the catch at that point. I'm going to be honest with you. I know that they've sent some guys to different pro days over the past week or so with, Keith Carter was at, I believe it was Keith Carter was at Oregon, or they had scouts at Oregon, and they were going, oh, 𝐿'𝐿. I'm like, well, maybe it could be for JPJ. But I've had such a focus on free agency over the last 2 weeks. The draft has taken such a rear view for me, but I like Morgan, not as a top half of the first round guy, maybe in the second round in a move down spot.
Definitely second round. Definitely. Yeah. Like, there's no part of me that would feel comfortable with, if there should be no ambition to pick him as the guy we're expecting to start. Like, yeah. I have no confidence if it would be as bad as relying on Carter Warren to start.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? Like,
developmental player. Like, I don't think he should, the Jets or anywhere, I don't think he's a day one starter. I think he needs a little bit of development there. Mike D's Nuts. He changed his name from Mike D's Life to Mike D's Nuts. He listened to us. Sign a veteran left tackle and wide receiver and go for a weapon in the draft. He is in on the weapon train. A lot of people are. What would your thoughts be? Okay, let's set the scene. Let's say they sign. Can we go crazy? Can we go Tyron Smith and, like, I don't know, a wide receiver? Pick whatever one's your favorite left that's available. Are you going, give me Brock Bowers at pick 10, or are you going to still try to do your trade down and go from there?
Man, it's such a hard. I really want to trade down for that second round pick. I really think, because there are good guys. When I say trade down, I mean trade down to that, anywhere from that, 12, no further back than 20. And I only say 20 because I really want Seattle to be in the negotiation if they want to come up, and I could totally see that happening. So I don't want to go past 20. I wouldn't mind even with Denver going to 12. They don't have a second round pick to give, so that would be tricky. But I really want that second round pick in this draft. And I think that, for example, I would rather have Brian Thomas Jr., wide receiver, and the combination of a second round pick than Bowers, because that second round pick is going to be a valuable player that contributes next year.
Yeah.
For this season.
No, that's true. That's absolutely true. And on the table there. Interesting comment where we got a lot of people in here, so it blew by me fast. Now I got to scroll back here and see. But Harlan says outside the echo chamber, but the Washington left tackle, meaning Charles Leno, could play either tackle and or either guard. Is that a name? He's a one-time Pro Bowler in 2018. He was a cap casualty out there in Washington, but is that a name you think the Jets should be in on or be looking for in free agency?
Well, I think we should look at everyone. I will be very honest. I don't know this player enough to say whether I'm happy or not happy if he was signed to be our left tackle. I'd have to do, obviously, the research we all do when a player we're not expecting gets signed. But I absolutely I uncover every stone. And the fact that if he could play either guard or tackle, we know that fits JD's, that's a sweet spot for him, because we see how valuable it's been for us to be able to have these conversations about, we could take a center because Tittman could move, or if we can't find a tackle, we can move AVT and take another interior. Like being able to do that is so valuable. So look, if this guy is an average to better than average left tackle, why not?
Yeah, and he's played pretty much exclusively left tackle in the NFL, at least a few snaps at right tackle, one snap at right guard in his career. But historically, a very good pass blocker. Just 3 sacks last year. Penalties, a little bit of an issue, so I guess maybe he fits in with the aggressiveness or the overzealous at times. That's what it seems like with the John Simpson signing, at least. So maybe he fits that bill, but I'd be intrigued by him. I'm not saying like that's a home run signing, but I think he would be a potentially average starter, which again raises the floor of what this offensive line could be. And last year was just so bad that if they raise the floor of the unit it could be like average to maybe like, I don't know, somewhere between average and like the 22nd best offensive line in the league, then that would be a pretty big improvement.
Yeah, I think everybody has to remember that's all we really need. If you actually more important than that is just staying healthy. Like if we're the 22nd best offensive line, but they play all 17 games pretty much, and we have very little injury issue, that's a lot more valuable than the players itself. We've learned that in the last 2 years. If you could bring back the same offensive line week after week, you're going to get good enough play. We know that's true for Breece Hall, and we have to assume that's going to be true for Aaron Rodgers. So obviously we want them to be as good as possible. We want the best players we can possibly fit in, but they don't all have to be stars. They just all have to be able to do their job well and work together as a team, and become a unit. And as long as those things happen and they stay healthy, I think we're going to be okay.
There you go. Another super chat for thanks for the cheese. I know Jeremy loves cheese, so he likes that. Say we sign or trade for a wide receiver 2. What would it cost to move up to number 6 to draft Joe Alt before the Titans if he's still there? I think to move up that high is going to be very, very costly. I don't know if they'll be able to. Can we bring up the draft tech, the good old fashioned draft tech value chart? Not that it's, the Bible by any stretch of the imagination, but I think it's a good reference point. Pick number 10 is here. Let's share this tab and then pull it up on here. So pick number 10 is worth 1,300 points. Number 6 is 1,600. The Jets would probably have to give their 3rd and 4th round picks, or maybe, it's pick next year or whatever to jump up that high. I would be, what interests me is if the Tennessee Titans either go the weapon route, which they just signed Calvin Ridley, so that might be less likely. But what if they were to go Olu Fashanu, JC Latham, or one of these other guys, bet on Olu Fashanu's development with their great offensive line coach. And then if for whatever reason Alt makes it to 8. I think trading up the 2 spots to Atlanta for like next year's second or something like that would be much more of a likely pull than jumping all the way up 4 spots to number 6 with the Giants. I think the Giants are going to want to sit there and take a player anyway. But what's your thoughts on this, Jeremy?
Yeah, I mean, it's something that could happen. I agree. Going up to 6 would be not having a second round pick this year in a draft like this, and wanting to make a run out of the next 2 years. It's hard to make a move like that because, but if you're trading away a 3rd and a 4th, let's say he hits on one of the 2, you're trading away somebody who would have been a contributor this year, or for the next 2 years. We have a 2-year window that JD is clearly building around, but even with these new signings, he's building around these 2 years. I don't know if we could afford to do that again, because as much as I would love to have Joe Alt he would be an animal for the next 12 years or whatever. We have our all-pro left tackle. We never have to think about it. But I just don't know that he's that far removed from a guy like a Fashanu where you get to keep your picks. Because again, yeah, he might not be as good as Joe Alt, but we don't necessarily need the best left tackle available, in the draft, or it doesn't have to be a Pro Bowler. If it's a very good left tackle, better than average left tackle, and we still get to have our picks and get other talent, it's just hard to give up those draft picks right now. I don't feel like we don't have an abundance of picks or anything like that. We're actually short a pick this year.
Yeah, they have a lot of late picks. It's not they're missing the early ones. They have multiple 4th, 6th, and 7th.
Yeah, I'll give all of those away. You could have all our 6th and 7th.
Yeah, exactly. At that point, who cares? Which is exactly why I was so excited about the Morgan Moses move, because you traded a 6th for a guy who is going to help you, where a 6th this year probably isn't helping you, all things considered. Your boy Uno says, does anyone like Brian Thomas Jr. in a trade back if we sign left tackle before the draft? Tigo in it says that's his favorite plan. And is that not something that you were just talking about too?
Yeah, it's an absolutely fantastic plan. Brian Thomas Jr., I think, is overlooked. I think that the guy, I'm not saying he should be above the guys that are up there with the 𝐒𝐮𝐬𝐫𝐚 and Neighbors and everything, but because those guys, and Marvin Harrison obviously, draw so much attention, this could be a sleeper guy. This could be a guy that ends up being, I see his floor as a very good WR2, like that can get you 800 to 1,000 yards, and that's his floor. I could also see him, depending on the situation, obviously next to Garrett Wilson, he's going to be WR2. But if it wasn't for that, if he was drafted somewhere else, he could be a WR1 that gets 1,200 to 1,500 yards a year for a while, and everybody's scratching their heads going, why didn't we pick this guy? Jefferson went, to 24 in the draft to the Vikings?
He was definitely somewhere in the 20s, right? And he's spectacular.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a great move if we went back to 20 and took Brian Thomas, and then, because we signed a left tackle. That's fantastic. I would be super excited about the season.
Great question from our guy, Johnny. The most important thing, what number will Morstead wear? I say 69 because he's so nasty. What's your thoughts?
I don't know. I would love it if he did. Is he allowed, though? I don't think a punter is allowed to do that.
Didn't New England special teams, they had like their kicker wearing 37 or some shit.
I actually don't like the freedom they're giving with the numbers, because it's very hard to read. This offseason, I've been working with some of our guys because I was never an X's and O guy. I'm trying to get better at being able to look at the field right away and see, they're playing a dime. They're playing in a nickel. It makes it so much harder to do that when you start playing with the numbers.
Yep.
Because it's like you don't know who's a linebacker. See, it's hard to make those assessments unless you really know the player's numbers memorized inside out. So I don't know, man. Just let him wear a punter's number. You know what I mean?
Give it number 6. That was what Mecole wore last year. That number's got some bad juju on it, and that's what he wore with the Saints. So Tigo said that one yesterday on my stream. So that's what I'm gonna steal his answer. I think he goes to 6. Garrett Wilson gets number 5, and all is right in the world.
Yeah, sure.
Next super chat. Jay Slimy says trading down is the move for me. If not, go for wide receiver. So Jay Slimy seems to want the veteran left tackle. Are you against staying at 10 and hoping that Olu Fashanu gets there. Like, are you comfortable if they wanted to draft Fashanu and start him in year 1 at left tackle?
I'm okay with that.
Okay.
If JD is, I'm okay. I mean, like, we got to leave some of it past our own assessments and have some trust in our GM. I know some people don't like that because they don't like Joe Douglas. I don't feel that way. I feel like injuries and things that may have hurt him, but overall, I trust our scouting department and I trust his assessments of players. I think if you look at the AVT move was great. He doesn't get hurt. I think we have, I mean, nobody would argue the AVT move. I think it was a great pickup. Joe Tippmann was a great pickup. If he's feeling Fashanu, why would I be one to argue that? Fashanu certainly has the potential to be a Pro Bowl left tackle in this league.
Yeah, I like it. What about, so someone that I wanted to ask you about that I like for the Jets in a trade back spot is Troy Fontenot. Someone who, there were some questions on whether he was going to play guard or tackle at the next level. After he tested, it looks like he is going to be able to play tackle at the next level. He's someone who I think could come in and either, like I mentioned with Fuaga, for instance, who could play maybe guard in his first year and then move out to tackle, assuming one of your two veterans at left tackle or right tackle moves off, and retires or just moves on. Well, what's your take on him as a prospect? And would you be interested in him in a trade down spot?
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if he jumps players that we didn't expect him to jump over on the offensive line. Kind of like last year. That kind of happened. It didn't go in the order we thought in the top 10. So I wouldn't be completely surprised. Like he's a guy that I could see get going in the early 20s, but also wouldn't be shocked if somebody grabbed him at 13 or 14 or, so when he weighed in with those arms, it was great news for us. It was like a celebration because that was, when you're a team that needs a tackle and then you get the super talented guy that is great and really talented that you thought didn't have the arm length to play tackle, and then suddenly turns out to have these long, 36 inches, 35 and a half inches. He has these long arms. I think that was great news for us, and he's definitely, if JD likes him, the scouting department likes him, and that's who they believe in, as long as they're not stretching, as long as they truly believe this is our guy, I feel comfortable with it.
Yeah, and someone who I respect a lot in this industry, Connor Rodgers, does stuff for NBC Sports, does the Badlands show, very active with SNY in the pre and post game. He has mentioned him potentially going to the Jets at 10. Now, I don't know if I'm quite there yet, but if someone like that, who again, I trust a lot, is that high on him, man, with his versatility, that might not be a bad play.
The only disappointing thing about it would be, and it depends on how it pans out. It doesn't mean it's JD's fault. I would just be disappointed. I'd say, well, if we're going to take him, really, we couldn't get Denver to give us anything, even a third-round pick and something next year. Like, we couldn't get anything because we would have gotten him at 12. That's how I'll think. I'll think that we could have gotten him a few picks later and gotten something for it. But you know what? As people say, if it works out, you never question it later on down the road.
No. Yeah, that's always the thing. With that, I've been spending most of the last 3 days just refreshing Twitter and looking for news. And today, really the only thing we got was the CJ Mosley extension / restructure. I am a big fan of how they went about doing this because it adds on another year, which fits in this Rodgers window, and it lowers the cap by almost $13 million this year. So to me, this was a no-brainer. I like CJ Mosley a lot. I just didn't want to see him play on that $20 million cap hit this year. So what was your reaction when you heard the news about Mosley?
I love him for it. It was me. I love to love. It was a selfless team move that he made. It was a great move that he made for us. 2 reasons. It helps us with the cap this year, and it's not like a restructure that hurts 2026. Again, it keeps us in this mode of the 2 years. All the money is the 2 years. What that does for me personally, what I like about it is it's going to make retaining our young players that much easier come 2026, when it's time for 5th-year options, when it's time for extensions. That's all going to be so much more flexible and available to us without kicking the can down the road, because we're able to make these moves without killing the future, like without pushing too much money into 2026. We already got the 60 something million that we're going to have to pay for Rodgers. So we really want to be careful about that. I mean, there's ways around it, but I prefer not to have to work those ways, because we all know the money catches up to you at some point down the road.
Absolutely. Blitzcrew's back with another chat. Says, aside from re-signing Davis, are we done at safety? Now, I would be all in on bringing Ashtyn Davis back because of his value on special teams and his just development at safety the last few years. He improved dramatically. But supposedly there was a report that he might not be coming back because he may be looking for a definite starting opportunity. So if that's the case, I think you do have to look at the veteran safety market to get a third guy in here. What would you say?
I want to know how much truth there is. Like, did his agent say it? Did he say it? And the only reason I say that is because the way the Jets play defense, there's a lot of rotation. It's not like he doesn't have a lot of opportunity to play. We got Clark playing after a full season-ending injury. So I think that being the third safety going into training camp is not such a bad thing. I think you get a lot of reps. If he did say it, it's unfortunate, because I happen to be a very big Ashtyn Davis fan. I feel he's gotten a lot better every year, and I feel that he does something a lot of our other players don't do. He's a turnover guy. He forces turnovers. And you could call it luck. You could call it whatever you want. The point is, when the ball gets loose, it's usually he is the one that caused it, or he's the one that happens to be the one to fall on it. And you hate to lose a player like that.
No, I agree with you, which is kind of nuts because, again, if you asked me this question 2 years ago, I would have been like, yeah, I mean, he's fine on his rookie deal, but he's going to leave and go somewhere else, and I'm not going to really care too much.
Yeah,
but yeah, at this point, as you said, he's created turnovers. He's gotten better in the areas he struggled with, like his pursuit angles, and sometimes still a little bit gets lost in coverage, but is always around the ball, makes plays, is a good special teamer. I think would be relatively cheap. I'm hoping the Jets bring him back, but you mentioned Chuck Clark. I'm very happy the Jets decided to re-sign him for 2024 because I do think if healthy, he would be an upgrade over Jordan Whitehead. And that was someone I was looking forward to watching last year. And then the unfortunate news of him tearing the ACL in OTAs.
Yeah, if I had to watch Whitehead miss another tackle trying to go for the big show-off hit, I think I would have. At some point, me and Green Bean were going to break our TVs. I mean, I just couldn't watch. I can't. It's just so frustrating because you get mad at him and you get mad at the coaches because you're like, how could this go on for 2 years? How could it be the same mistake? And we all know what the mistake is and it not get corrected. It's like, stop trying to use your shoulder to look good on a hit and just wrap your arms and tackle a guy. And Clark does that. He's a tackling machine. So it's an upgrade.
Yeah, it definitely is. Alan chimes in with the chat, says, Jerry Tillery got 3.7 million. 𝐿 Kinlaw got 6.9. Huh? The 𝐿 Kinlaw signing, I was really surprised at that number when it came in, that it could be up to $7.25 million. That's not where I was expecting Kinlaw to come in at. I thought he'd be a $3, maybe $4 million player at the most. What's your take on Kinlaw? And I guess what kind of role do you see him at that money? I guess he's going to get more playing time than I originally thought.
Well, is it possible that his people are more down on him because of his draft pick number, like where he was drafted? So he feels like a disappointment versus he was as bad as people think he was. That could be the only way, because we're not. I mean, JD doesn't just throw money; he doesn't have to throw away. Obviously, he got the impression that there were teams willing to pay this value, right, or at least this much value for him to have done it. So I don't know. I honestly don't know where it comes from. I don't know if he just knew their other GMs or if he got duped. Maybe the agent made him think there was interest somewhere else. But it's unlike JD to overpay.
Yeah, I mean, this was definitely his best year in the league. He dealt with injury in 2022, only 6 games, 2021, only 4 games.
Oh.
As a rookie, didn't play a ton. I'm trying to look for this. Oh, no, he did play 61% of snaps. He played 44% of the snaps in San Francisco. But my thought was, okay, Kinlaw maybe is your Solomon Thomas upgrade. And then you bring back Quentin Jefferson, add another run-stopping guy, and then you're on your way. I think with the money, and obviously Quentin Jefferson goes to the Browns earlier today, Kinlaw might end up playing closer to 50%. And I think it's a little bit risky based on his injury history. But to the Jets' credit, on the defensive side of the ball, 𝐌𝐿𝐴, 𝐿𝐵RIC, and Robert Saleh has gotten a lot out of these guys. So maybe, like, that's my hope, is that maybe there's untapped potential that they could squeeze out of this guy.
Yeah, and don't forget, this is I mean, they paid him for a reason. They must see that, like, health. They must believe that healthy, he's going to be better than he's been, right? And I also think that this happens to be a very deep draft in defensive tackle. This is a year where that 4th round 111 pick that we didn't give a swap. That's the kind of pick where you can get a defensive tackle that can actually take 20% of the reps, probably year 1. Yeah. So, because there are some guys, it's a very deep draft in defensive tackle. There's a lot of guys there that are capable of being NFL players. So I think that might be something we should definitely all expect. I think that neither of the two signings have thrown me off the idea that we're going to draft a defensive tackle come April.
Yeah, and with the Jets having 2 4th-round picks, that feels like the range that I think I would start to feel comfortable with at that spot. Any earlier, at least with how the team is projected or how they look currently, I think offensive line and wide receiver would be the spots I'd be looking at in rounds 1 and 3. You know, again, subject to change based on whatever potential signings happen before, NFL draft night on the 25th of April. But once you get into that 4th to 6th round, you should be able to theoretically find a run stopper that can play year 1, 35% of snaps on early downs.
Yeah, or as Greenby would say, you find a big fat guy.
I love that. Nobody loves the big fatties in A3 than Greenby.
I'm telling you, I think that he has dreams of being in a big buffet with them online.
Oh God, I love it. Your boy, this is something we said about on last week's show. We talked about Jets need to stay away from OBJ. He will abuse them for money.
I agree.
What kind of? I was going to say, do you agree with that? Do you think he's going to get a bigger deal than maybe we're anticipating?
This guy is the equivalent of Conor McGregor in UFC and boxing. This guy is a self-promoter, and he gets money. And I'm not putting him down in the sense that it works. I mean, he finds a way to get himself overvalued. Last year, his contract was ridiculous. This guy has not had over 35 receptions since 2019. What are we talking about here? He had a good run of a few games leading up to the Super Bowl for the Rams in one of the best systems you could be in, with Cooper Kupp taking up all the attention. So what was he doing? Look at the passes he was catching. It wasn't OBJ like he was for the Giants, going deep and all over the field. He was cutting across the middle, and he, like a slot, and doing something a lot of different receivers could do. I'm sorry. To me, OBJ is a $5 to $6 million wide receiver, and he doesn't even fit our needs because he's a slot.
Yeah. No, I am with you on that. If there was a world where he would sign a 1-year deal for $5 million and be a third option, okay, yeah, I would sign up for that. But the Jets still wouldn't have a number 2 receiver in this scenario, at least not yet. And I think he's going to get close to double digits. Hell, Darnell Mooney, who I like, but not at $13 million on a 3-year deal. Like, so the wide receiver money's been a little bit crazy in free agency so far.
Yeah, we just need, remember, when we talked about it before, we just need a wide receiver that gets over 60 receptions, 65 receptions, WR2, 700 to 900 yards, anywhere in that sweet spot. You put that with Garrett Wilson getting 1,500 yards and everybody else combined, you're right where Aaron Rodgers needs to be for him to get his normal yardage.
We have a non-Jets breaking news free agency, so I'm going to hit the sounder for it. I've been having a lot of fun with these. Breaking news! So we'll pull it up, but got to share this tab instead. DJ Reader is off the board if any were interested. Defensive tackle, Lions on a 2-year deal. Another big addition for that Detroit Lions defense. It's a quiet day, Jeremy, when I'm getting excited that we got a breaking news story, and it's DJ Reed to the Lions on a 2-year deal.
Oh my God. But you know what? I mean, I guess there was a few big moves, but it hasn't been like the earth-shattering offseason. Maybe because I'm so hyper-focused on the Jets, I just don't care. But, but it's there have been some bigger contracts than I expected. We certainly got a lot of teams paying more for backup quarterbacks than I've ever seen. Like I've never seen backup quarterbacks make the salaries they're making, and it's certainly picked up in the last couple of years.
No, it definitely has. And we were just on wide receiver a second ago, excuse me, with Odell Beckham Jr. Another name that a lot of Jet fans have been looking at in the free agent market is Tyler Boyd. Do you think he's a realistic option, or do you think he ends up in Pittsburgh? Because I've seen some things that are like, he's definitely signing in Pittsburgh, but it's been like 24 hours since that's been out, and still we haven't gotten official word on it. So are you even considering Tyler Boyd? Do you think he's gone? What's your take on Boyd?
He could be the guy. I think he's not as I don't think he's a guarantee that if we got him, he would be the WR2 we want or need. I think he has the potential to be. It's kind of hard because he was in Cincinnati in a weird situation where you had, Chase and Higgins. So, I mean, he's coming from a weird spot. I'm kind of interested in the Michael Williams market because he is, by definition, a WR2.
Yeah.
A couple of 1,000-yard seasons where he just got over 1,000 yards, but really he's a bottom end WR1, like not very, I don't think, not the dream not the WR1 you want, but a really great WR2. So I just wonder how much he's going to get.
Yeah, me too. I mean, he only played 3 games in 2023, but the years before that, 895 yards in 22, 1,100 yards in 2021, 756 in 2020, 1,000 in 2019. Like, he's a steady, productive receiver.
Yeah.
And what's different between him and Boyd has played while he's a bigger receiver, he's played a majority of his time in the slot, where Mike Williams, like, that is an outside X receiver, and then that allows you to move Garrett Wilson inside if you want to. There is while I would be in on Williams, I think it makes sense. There's also risk involved there because, again, he only played 3 games and is coming off an injury. But I think worth that risk. You agree?
Yeah. I mean, look, we know the injury now, ACLs. It's not, it's pretty much, I would say, almost every player now that gets them comes back and they're okay and they're fine. And even if he's a little off his prime, even if he's not going to get the 900 yards, the top end, even if he's going to get 750, if he's solid and he's there, he doesn't drop passes like Lazard does, and he's a nice big target in the end zone for A-Rod, so he's able to put up 8 touchdowns, something like that, that would be outstanding. And then, it comes down to cost. He's not, you don't want to spend $20 million plus on a guy like that. You want to have, you get a good value contract, bring him in.
Yeah, I think it's definitely worth a look, especially when you consider just the wide receivers that are left. There's not a ton of options left that would fill what the Jets are looking for. So I think I would definitely be taking a look at it. Is there anything else you want to get into in free agency, or you want to do last 10 minutes on our quarterback?
No, I can't. I just think that we freed up some money. We have the money. It's just a question of, are we bringing in a tackle or are we bringing in a weapon? And that's going to dictate what happens in the draft. And again, like next week, we're going to get together again, and we might be having a different conversation because we might know a lot more than we know right now.
Absolutely. So, Jeremy, how do you feel about Aaron Rodgers being the vice president? That's a thing, and that's going to happen, apparently.
What I can't believe is there are people, I thought it was a joke. I thought people were joking around and clowning me. Like, because they're saying, I can't believe this. You see, this always happens. Now we're going to lose Aaron Rodgers. I cannot believe there are people that believe there's any possibility that Aaron Rodgers is not our opening day quarterback. Give me a break. He is our quarterback. He's not retiring. He made it very clear that he's playing, and he wants to play 2 more years at least, and perhaps more. He's not a liar. And a lot of what he says, he's very, one thing is when he says it, he's saying it. You know what I mean? And he's been very, very adamant about it, that he likes it here and he's playing. And just because somebody said he's on top of my list to be my running mate for VP, a guy who's not going to get even 1% of the vote in the country and probably won't even make the ballot in more than half the states, please, let's not get crazy. Let him just take Jesse Ventura and let them have a blast together.
Yeah, no, exactly. But it's just so typical that something like this has to come up, and then it's It's never a normal day, Jeremy. You can't just go, all right, it's free agency. Who are we going to sign? It's free agency. And also the Jets quarterback might leave and become the vice president for Robert Kennedy Jr. It's unbelievable. You really can't make it up.
It's like people taking advantage of our PTSD. That's what it is.
Yeah, it totally is. Now, I don't think, let's really think about it a second. Do you think he wants to end his NFL career with the last image of him being carted off the field at MetLife Stadium?
Yeah, it's not. That is a great point, and also a great point is: do you really think someone says, "Finish my NFL career and try to win a Super Bowl"? Run on a vice president ticket that has no chance of winning, and then be some loser who's sitting there saying, I gave up my chance to win a Super Bowl so I could be on a losing ticket that gets less than 1% of the vote in the country. I mean, let's be real here. I mean, if it's absolutely insane. There's no logic to it. He's not leaving. And if he runs, I guess he'll do it as a Jet. We'll have a player on our team. Our quarterback will be playing in a game, and they'll say in 3 days we're going to find out if he's our vice president.
God, you can't make it up. But him, I have not really a conspiracy theory, but I'll tell you my theory on why he hasn't come out and said that he is not running with RFK. But my theory is he's made it clear that he's a fan of him. So I think he's going to let him get the publicity from his name for a couple weeks before he puts the thing to bed. Like Rodgers likes when the attention is going, and he obviously wants more name recognition to someone that he likes. So my theory is he's going to let that one sit and let people talk about it so that RFK can go on podcasts and discuss it, and his name gets out there, and it's just stirring the shit for another week or two before he actually announces who's going to be the VP.
Yeah, he has absolutely no reason to say anything. That's why he's not. And then people got scared about Sauce Gardner's tweet. Sauce is totally screwing around.
Yeah, Sauce is totally
he's messing around.
Yes, yeah, and he wasn't the only one. There was, I have the banner in for that too, so we can pop that up too. But the Brees tweets, Brees Hall apparently. Let's set you off. Let's get a Jeremy rant or reaction to people taking Brees Hall, or even just in general, the Jets tweets a little too seriously.
If you make one tweet that's a joke or a little bit too cryptic, it's like it becomes all hell breaks loose. The guy was literally commenting on the interior offensive lineman, the size of the contracts, and saying and joking around about some stuff. And he literally came out after the trade and said he's thrilled with what the Jets are doing. Like thrilled.
We have,
we
have breaking news that is kind of related to the Jets. So I'm going to breaking news.
Oh no.
So veteran wide receiver Corey Davis, who stepped away from football in August, has applied for reinstatement to the NFL. The Jets are expected to release Davis from the reserve/retired list today, although return to New York on a new contract is in play.
Wow, that's huge. That's not just related to the Jets. That is tremendous.
Right. It's one related to the Jets because that's who.
No, I thought it was going to be one of the guys we wanted signed somewhere else.
No. It is very Jets related. We get to end on the show with the little Corey Davis talk. Are you in on that? Do you want Corey Davis back?
Oh, hell yeah. I'm definitely one of the people a little bit more upbeat. You know, I spent a lot of hours online with Adam, 𝐻𝐿2K Media. He's a huge Corey Davis fan. Do I want him to be the WR2 we rely on? Absolutely not. Do I want him to be on the roster, though, pushing Lazard back a further spot? Yeah, absolutely. You give me a WR2 now, and you make and you have Garrett Wilson, somebody we signed, let's say Boyd or Michael Williams. You bring in Corey Davis, Lazard, your number 4. Xavier Gipson can come in and play a little slot and gadget plays. Now you can move Garrett Wilson to the slot and interchange him. I love it. It'd be great.
Yeah, and like Alan says, max $5 million. Like you're bringing him, but you're not getting anywhere close to where he was. What was he, $11 or $12 million?
No. He's got to have prove it year at least.
Yeah, right. A 1 year, 4, 5, 6, maybe.
Yeah,
in that range. And I don't think if you were to bring back Corey Davis, I don't think that stops you from then also adding someone else. So add two, bring back Corey, prove it, and add another, whether it's, in the draft early or, one of the names, Mike Williams, Boyd, whoever.
Yeah. And he's one of those guys. It's not impossible that he could actually fill the role of WR2. We just don't rely on it. Right. So that's a really big difference. But I'm not going to sit there and say his ceiling is he could not fill a WR2 spot. Because the truth is, we don't know. With a real offensive line and a real quarterback, he very well might be a guy. Because remember, we're talking about, can Corey Davis with Aaron Rodgers, if he gets back to his old form, can he get to 700-plus yards, 5 or 6 touchdowns? I don't think that's out of the question.
No. King Blaze says CD is a 2. I would say he was a 2. We don't know if he's a 2 anyway. He missed a year.
Right.
Like that, you have to factor in the year missed. You can't just go, he's going to be what he was from 21 and 22 with the Jets. I would love for that. And with Rodgers, there's a chance he could be very good, but he missed an entire year. Yeah. So it's not, you're not paying him wide receiver 2 money. You're paying him a 1-year cheap prove it. And it could work out really well. And if it doesn't, it's not costly money. So you don't really, you don't care that much.
Yeah. As a person, I really like the kid. Like, I really like him, and I'm really happy that he's reapplying, because that means whatever he worked out in his personal life, like that, hopefully has been resolved to an extent where he can move on with his life. When we saw him on, Jets One Drive and everything they showed about him, I just like him I think he's a good kid. I think he's a good person, and I'm happy for him. And I'd love to have him on the team again.
Yeah, no, I would too. The mixed reactions online. Some people love the idea, some hate it. I think, again, if it was cheap as a third option, add somebody else in the mix, you're starting to get there.
Yeah.
I did do the breaking news. Johnny says you didn't do the breaking news. Did I not hit the sounder? I thought I hit the sounder.
Breaking news.
We got the sounder in there.
I think Johnny just wanted to hear a few more times.
David wants to know, do you love him as much as Coach _𝐿𝐵𝐿?
No one comes in the way of that. Coach Brick is my my love. Yes. He's my very special, like the head that pops up right here and talks to me when I need advice. The whole thing.
The whole thing. Wow, what an exciting way! This is the only time that I've done a stream where we've gotten like actual Jets breaking news on the stream. Everything else either happened right before. Who knew? I just needed to bring Jeremy on. Maybe I should have had you the last 3 days.
You needed the bald-headed good luck charm.
Yeah, I definitely did. So wow, what a way to end the show. I'm gonna keep refreshing here before we actually call it quits for the day, because who knows if we get the Adam Schefter bomb. The Jets release him, but plan to bring him back on a 1-year, again, $4 million, whatever it is. All right, I guess. We're approaching the hour mark here. What's final thoughts on free agency and everything that's happened this week, and what you want to see happen next?
Overall, it didn't happen in a big overwhelming wave of joy and screaming and yelling. It happened very slowly in little pieces that we had to absorb. But I gotta say, it's especially with this Corey Davis news, I'm feeling really good. I'm happy we got our kickers taken care of. And, I'm bringing those guys back. I'm feeling really good right now. I'm feeling like it's all coming to place, but I'm not content yet, because I know that there's still a piece. Like, I still feel that piece. I do not want to go into the draft with 0 answers at left tackle, because there's only 2 plug-and-play left tackles, in my opinion, in this draft. So I am not comfortable going into the draft with nothing. Like, something has to happen that we have some kind of alternative. And if they announce that it's going to be AVT, if they don't do anything, and then we go in just looking for interior line in the 3rd round or whatever it is, that's fine. But something has to be resolved for me. They have to do something, either that or get another weapon.
I'm with you on that. I think I'm looking at wide receiver next, because that's still a weaker spot right now. I would like to see maybe another move on the offensive line. But overall, my phrase for the Jets week, right, with their trades and free agency, it's been a little bit of a slow burn. They're taking their time with it. I think some of the stress early on in the week was justified. I think some of it was a little overblown, but at the same time, I think, there needed to be some sort of urgency with this offseason, but there's a path to it being okay. And I hope that's where we end up by the time we talk next week.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey, just so you know, I'm going to be releasing my epic rant video. A lot of people went crazy. I had a crazy reaction. I went on an epic rant during a live show. I went off on a Miami Dolphin fan. I am going to release a video that is just those 5-6 minutes where I totally lost my mind. And I'm also going to be releasing a series on 𝐒𝐿𝐵𝐿. We did deep film analysis, and we invite you into the film room with us, me and Tony, the GM. And we have like a 5-segment, 5-part show on 𝐿𝐵𝐿 coming up soon.
Perfect. One more super chat before we get out of here. I want Joe Alt, 𝐿𝐵𝐿, and OBJ. Come on, Trader Joe. What's the second one? Am I missing that? Is there a typo in there, or is there a prospect 𝐿𝐵𝐿 that I don't know?
Is he talking about I thought for a second there's a running back in the draft. That reminds me. That name reminds me of like a running back. I'm trying to remember who, but I don't know.
From Notre Dame?
Yeah, there's somebody like with that. I thought that might be a typo for their name.
No, okay.
Like
the running back from Notre Dame. They did. When is he supposed to go in the draft? I don't think they're going to be in on him.
Oh no, I mean there's a chance. I mean if they're going to go running back 3rd or 4th round, it's possible. I guess. I think 3rd round would have to be.
Okay.
I think.
There we go. All right, good way to close it. I would love Joe Alt in the draft, obviously, but they're going to have to move up and get him at that point. OBJ probably a no from both of us, I would say.
Yes, not interested.
No.
Just not interested. Not a WR2.
No. All right, so that's going to do it for us. Please make sure before you go, leave a like, subscribe right here for Talking Jets for even more Jets content. For Jeremy, I'm Matt O'Leary, and we'll catch you guys next time.